The Golden State Warriors defend home court to take a commanding 3-1 series edge. I didn't get a chance to talk about games 2 and 3, so I wanted to briefly recap those two games before we get into the game 4 recap. So for game 2, the Warriors lost Jimmy Butler. Common knowledge by this point. He took a nasty fall. Amen Thompson kind of took out his legs, but Amen was also kind of blocked into Jimmy Butler after Draymond kind of shoved Amen. So all incidental contact. There was no malicious intent by this play. Just unfortunate to see that Jimmy Butler had to exit a playoff game and miss game 3. But in game 2, it was really good work by the Rockets. After playing with some desperation, they had their backs up against the wall, and we finally saw Jalen Green step it up. He had 38 points. He was aggressive, attacking the rack. He made a ton of three-pointers. I believe it was 8 on the night, and this was really great showing after a poor playoff debut in game 1. Game 3 was excellent work by Houston, at least to start. They did a great job in containing Steph Curry as he was held to just 1 of 5 shooting, and this was on top of Jimmy Butler missing game 3 due to that gluteal bruise. The Warriors' defense was the defining factor of how the Warriors were able to keep the Rockets at arm's length. They forced steals, blocks, or shot clock violations, and they did so without their offense doing anything substantial. Like I said earlier, Steph Curry was held relatively in check, and it was going to be due for somebody else to step up. But towards the end of the first half, Steph got cooking. He helped the Warriors close the gap by halftime when they were trailing as many as 13 points. Steph finally got some space to splash his first three-pointer coming off of a Quinton Post rebound, where Tari Eason got caught ball watching in the process. Closing quarters has been a common theme in these playoffs so far, and whenever a team has that late burst, especially in the final 2 minutes of a quarter, usually they come out the winner. Basketball is a game of runs, and just before halftime, the Rockets were leading by 12 points, but the Warriors went on a 9-0 run between Buddy Hield and Steph Curry to cut the lead to just 3 points. The Rockets did their best to keep the Warriors at arm's length, but thanks to Steph Curry carrying the offensive load, especially in the second half, he was cooking, where he was doing most of his damage with jump shots by freezing defenders in the paint, or just a simple catch and shoot that we've seen him do throughout his entire career. We label Steph as the greatest shooter ever, and that's very valid. He is 100%. But what makes Steph Curry unique is his gravity. And what I mean by gravity is that Steph is the focal point of any defense when they're playing the Warriors, and Steph naturally makes defenders gravitate towards him, and this by default leaves somebody wide open. Defenders are quick to blitz Steph and Curry, but this inevitably leaves somebody wide open, and the benefactor of this, particularly in the fourth quarter, was GP2. Gary Payton II had 11 of his 16 points in the final frame of Game 3. He's often touted as a scrappy defender, burning teams with offensive bursts, whether it's through slashing to the rim or three-pointers. But in this particular game, he did a great job in setting ghost screens or just slipping out, and on this particular play, he's able to set the screen as Steph sucks in the defense, forcing essentially a double team. GP2 slips to the basket for the easy layup. On this ref, Steph is matched up against Jalen Green, and on the drive to the basket, he forces Amen Thompson to slide over to help. But somehow Steph is able to get the pass off to GP2 in the corner, who splashes the three-pointer. Down the stretch, this would be more apparent as Steph gets by Fred VanVleet and Jabari Smith to another pass to GP2 for an easy basket. The Rockets' offense would dry up in the fourth quarter as Jalen Green came back down to earth from his 38-point performance in Game 2 to only scoring 9 points in Game 3. And with his struggles, this forced Amen Thompson to be the initiator for the Rockets' offense, which went very poorly for Houston, unfortunately, as possessions turned into turnovers or bad shots. The entire Rockets team was just simply inefficient. All-star Alperen Şengün struggled mightily for much of this series as Draymond seems to be getting into his head. Game 3 turned out to be a massive missed opportunity for these Houston Rockets as their starters failed to get going, and while Steph did most of his damage scoring 36 points, but his 9 assists in getting role players involved like Pods with 13 points and GP2 with 16 points, and Buddy Hield coming up with 17 crucial points makes up for what Jimmy Butler would have contributed if he was in this game. Jimmy Butler returned to the lineup and he came on late in the fourth quarter as the Warriors would take a commanding 3-1 series edge over the Houston Rockets. The Dubs got off to a strong start, taking a 13-2 lead thanks to separate Rockets miscues resulting in wide open layups, dunks, and open three-pointers. However, the Rockets began to settle in as they later retook the lead in the second quarter as the physicality was brought up by 10 levels. Dudes were setting hard screens, and this was playoff caliber basketball with hard fouls. We saw a couple of skirmishes resulting in technical fouls being dished out to Draymond Green, Dillon Brooks, and even Steph Curry for taunting and other extracurricular activities, but Draymond got into it with Tari Eason and narrowly escaped ejection by getting hit with a flagrant 1 foul, not a second technical foul that would kick him out of this game. So very close to seeing another devastating Draymond Green ejection, but to be honest, the first instant where he set a hard screen on Amen Thompson I thought was a clean screen. Now the skirmish with Tari Eason I think was definitely accidentally on purpose, as the kick to the head looks inadvertent at first glance, but very clearly looks like the unnecessary roll, and the heel to the back of Tari Eason's head was definitely unnecessary. The Rockets finally were able to get Fred VanVleet going as he knocked in 8 3-pointers as he struggled also mightily in the first 3 games of this series. And his 3-point shooting was huge for Houston as they were down by 10 points early in that third quarter, squandering a 7-point lead at halftime. Brandon Podziemski was huge in Game 4, providing 26 points, doing most of his damage early and late, including great defense on Fred VanVleet, getting a huge block late in this game. His shooting in this series in terms of catch and shoot has been huge for Golden State. Like I mentioned earlier, Jimmy Butler was relatively quiet entering the fourth quarter with just 13 points. But when the Warriors needed him most, he delivered, making clutch basket after clutch basket and going a perfect 12 for 12 from the free throw line, outscoring the entire Golden State roster by himself in the fourth quarter, plus securing the game-sealing rebound. I liked Ime Udoka's scheme in Game 4 on Steph Curry, as Steph was pretty quiet in Game 4, being held to just 17 points. But this scheme was utilized too little too late. Why wasn't this done in Game 3? When you know that the Warriors only have Steph Curry to generate any real type of offense, you have to sell out to stop Steph Curry. My concerns with the Rockets' offense came true as Jalen Green continues to disappoint. His inconsistency is apparent as he had more turnovers than baskets made while running his mouth between Games 3 and 4. It's one thing to talk the talk, but in playoff basketball, it's all about letting the play doing the talking for you. In this particular series, Jalen Green has done more yapping than hooping. Şengün had his best game of the series, scoring 31 points, but most of that came with Draymond Green on the bench, sitting out due to foul problems. With a chance to take the lead late, Şengün was matched up against Draymond Green, and once again, Draymond won that matchup. Couple that with an abysmal 8 for 16 performance from the free throw line in Games 3 and 4, Şengün came up small. And to talk about free throws, the Rockets as a team missed 12 free throws in the game decided by just 3 points. Now, somebody on the Rockets staff has to tell Dillon Brooks to shut the fuck up. The minute Dillon Brooks started jawing at Jimmy Butler, who at that point only scored 4 points in Game 4, that put something inside of Jimmy Butler, who went on to torch the Rockets for 23 points since that interaction. Dillon always tries to be that guy when in fact he never was. In fact, Jimmy Butler is that guy. And that's simply simply the difference between the real demon and the fake demon. The Rockets look like the Warriors' latest victim as a young usurper trying to take the throne in the Western Conference, but once again, the Warriors' experience proves to be too much. This was an excellent overall win for Golden State, who are now smelling blood in the water. And with an opportunity to get some much needed rest, I would expect the Warriors to be primed to close out this series in Game 5 back in Houston. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Will the Warriors close out this series in 5, or will the Rockets live to see another day?